Hey there. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about moving averages as an alternative to regular averages. So in a LinkedIn post I shared recently that a lot of marketers tend to follow regular averages when in reality a better option would have been to use moving averages. So moving average is nothing really uh, very advanced mathematically. It's a simple concept. I'm going to walk you through the concept in a moment. So there are two or three things that I will be showing in this video. First, there is this Python script that I've created, and this script essentially does carry out the objective of calculating moving averages on a data set, and then it also visualizes it using a chart, which is pretty cool because it's animated and it might be a good idea to actually present it to your stakeholders. And then I'm also going to walk you through the data set and how that particular chart was built. So what was the final data set that the Python code was really using. I'm also going to walk you through the concepts behind moving averages. So do watch till the end. This will be pretty useful that you can actually apply in your day-to-day work. So here's what this code does. It just imports some important libraries first. Pandas, matplotlib, and there's also the matplotlib.animation because there's going to be slight element of animation. Like I said, there's going to be an animated chart. Then you're going to have to install something called the image magic package. This will essentially help execute the animation and display it here within Google Colab. So by the way, this is Google Colab. This is a Python environment that runs on Google Cloud. So the advantage is that you don't have to run Python code on your system, which might make your system slower and the execution a bit of a hassle. So the next step is to actually upload the files. So as you can see, it's been uploaded in the form of CSV. And again, this uploading method just varies from platform to platform. Since I'm using Colab, I have to go through a couple of additional steps here. And this is how the data set looks like. And I'll actually show you the raw data set from the Google Sheet itself. So this is the data set that was actually uploaded to Python, to Google Colab. And you have different dates, and you have three kinds of data points for each date. One is for impressions, which is the real data. Then you also have data for a longer period and a data for a shorter period. And you have impressions, clicks, cost, conversion value, ROAS, and CTR. The same columns, of course, in each of these three cases. The shorter period accounts for 7 days. That's how it has been defined. So basically what you're going to do is compare the real day-by-day data for each of these variables, and you're going to compare it with the real one, and then you're going to compare it with an average over the last 7 days and an average over the last 21 days for each of the dates. So that's essentially what moving average does. There's nothing, there's no rocket science involved in it, but it's pretty cool, and I'll just explain in a moment why you would do it. But let's just understand the data first. So once it's organized in this way, you're going to have to take these different important data points together. So for instance, I'm just plotting impressions here, but you can do this for obviously for each of these variables, whichever one you want to actually process. And once you have that, so by each of these dates, I have taken the impression for a longer period and impression for the shorter period from these two tabs that I just showed. And then I'm just going to plot it. That's a line chart essentially, and I'm going to animate that using Python. So as you can see, the static one is here, and this static one is also generated using Python, by the way. If you try to do it in Excel, it might not look as good, but you might obviously work on it and do some visualization changes, edits to how the chart is going to look like. It's going to take some additional effort. It's doable, of course, in Excel as well or Google Sheet. But this, just for your information, FYI, this was created in Python. And as you can see, what this chart is showing is on a daily basis, the blue line shows the real variation of the impressions, and then the red line shows how the impressions have varied, when taking into account the moving average over 21 days, which is the longer period, and the same thing is shown by the yellow graph. Just in this case, it is shown for 7-day moving average. So let's just jump back to the code once more, and then while I'll come back to the concept. So once that data has been uploaded, now I'm going to actually have to make some changes to convert the data to proper data types. So Python requires the information to be available in a certain format, and usually that's the numerical format. So there are two types of numerical formats, which are data types which are actually acceptable to Python, and in fact, in as a matter of fact, most programming languages, and that's number and float. So integer or float rather. So in this case, you see float has been used. So float is nothing but it accepts decimal points. And as you can see, the date has to be converted to something called date time. This is just a Python thing, really. And then you have to sort of, wherever there are these elements, there are commas or dots. So that has to be just, just replace, and you have to convert it into float type. So that is the objective of this particular, piece of code here. And then you have to, so essentially you are replacing the commas with dots, in fact, just to correct that. And then once that's been done, you have to create the axis. So this is creating the blank axis. And then you have to set up the axis titles and labels. And then you have to set the limits for the axis. You want to say, okay, what's going to be the minimum and the maximum for both the, for both the longer period and the shorter period. And this is the case with the y-axis. The x-axis, of course, has the dates, the min and max for that. And then you have a legend on the top. Then you initialize the chart lines, and then you have this important function. So this is the function that's actually going to animate the graph. Okay, that's the animation part of it. And you can just take a look at this. If you have questions about it, you can ask me. I'm not walking through this one because it's not a Python tutorial. But it's meant to be just DFY. If you want to animate it like this, you can do that. And then you have this animation function being run, and you have to save it as a GIF. And this is entirely because, once again, this had to be sort of tweaked or given a little bit of twist in order to make it functional in Colab. But the code might vary if you are working in Python in Python Notebook or Jupyter Notebook rather. And then you have to display it. So this is how it looks like. So first the blue line, the first the actual data points are plotted. Then the shorter period ones are plotted, and the longer period ones plotted after that. So pretty cool, right? And obviously what you can see is, starting from the impressions, then to the shorter period, and then to the longer period, you see that the fluctuations are actually reducing, right? So essentially it is nothing but a smoothing function. So moving average does precisely that. It just smooths out the graphs, takes out the smaller or shorter period fluctuations, so that the net or overall trend over the date range that you're looking at starts becoming more visible, so that you're not distracted by the smaller fluctuations. So essentially this gives a very good way of looking at trends. So it's a good trend analysis approach. By no means is this the most advanced form of moving average. This is basically simple moving average that we're looking at. There are more advanced things like exponential moving average. I've actually discussed these things on LinkedIn previously, but I'll be doing that in the future. I already have some material around that. If you want, you can drop a message. But this is a good place to start, and especially if you're looking at a simple task like this, where you're just comparing a metric. So this is impression. This could have been any of the other metrics that were there in the data set. So this is a good place to start, and certainly you'll be really getting the attention of the stakeholder that you're presenting it to. Now I'll just walk you through the concept quickly. So this is the mathematics of simple moving average. Like I just said, fairly easy. You just take the average of all the data points from so 0 to n minus 1 means n data points, and essentially for the tth time you're taking the sum of all the elements up until that point. So that's exactly what's happening. If I just jump into this and explain, so suppose you want to take the moving average of this point for say a 3-day period, you're going to have to take the moving average of the previous 3 days. Okay, so if I actually jump into the actual data, so if it's a 7-day one, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this one here in B9 is nothing but the average of these 7 days. Okay, so that average is say this one, and period one is the longer period. So let's go to the shorter period. So there you go. If you remember, this is exactly what I showed for the 7 days. 30743 was the average. So that's how it's calculated, and that's the concept that's been given here in an algebraic format. And then you have the step-by-step simple example that you can also follow. You can get this sheet from me as well. So you have the 3 days, you take the 3-day average, and so that's going to be the first data point, and so on and so forth. So as you understand, I mean, the data obviously starts only from the point which is possible. So for instance, if you are taking a 3-day average, the first data point will be corresponding to this point, right? So that's how it works basically, because you can't have a 3-day moving average for the first data point, right? Because there are no 3 values before it. So anyway, those are very simple concepts, not very technically challenging, but it's the outcome and the reasoning behind it that's more important to understand. That if you are looking at data on a day-to-day basis, let's actually understand it from the context of optimization. Looking at data on a daily basis is actually important. We marketing analysts have to look at the performance of the different platforms, whether ads or organic, whatever, and our marketing initiatives have to be judged on a daily basis. But you can't take actions on the basis of daily fluctuations in most cases, right? That's just going to be what's called knee-jerk reaction. So you don't want a knee-jerk reaction. You want a data-driven, scientific, sophisticated, analysis-driven reaction, and that can only be done if you're looking at a longer period. But the problem with the longer period is that when you obviously start taking averages. The problem with averages is that it gives you wrong impressions about the data, and it is very, very vulnerable to extremities, right? So that again I've explained in other videos and other content, but I think you understand my point here. It's extremely susceptible to being um, you know sub, you know to being affected by outliers or extremities, extreme values. So that's why a moving average is a better idea. A moving average smooths out extreme fluctuations or even smaller fluctuations, and it gives you, and the longer the date range for the moving average, the better is going to be the outcome of the trend analysis. So essentially, it's meant to understand trend analysis, and you should be taking actions on the basis of trends, not short-term fluctuations. That's the whole point of this video. That's the whole point of this exercise. The only additional thing that I have really shown here, it's a very old concept, but still I don't think not, maybe even 80% of marketers are not aware of it. But anyway, on top of all of this, the other cool thing is this animated chart, which I think is pretty decent and is going to catch the eyeballs of stakeholders. So that's all I had. It was a pretty short video. Hope it was useful. And if you have any questions, do drop in the comments.